What the heck? The heck are we looking at? Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. I thought this woman's name was King's Lover for 17 months. I'm not gonna lie. This is one of the best books ever written. I tend to think at times some books are written very well, meaning that the author has a great control of the English language, or whatever language you're reading in. In my case, it would be English. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a fun, enjoyable book to read. There may be no deeper meaning. A good example would be Ulysses by James Joyce. It's an exhibition of the English language. Horrible story. Nobody reads it for the story. This one is a great, I'll say, exhibition of the English language. And it's also a great story. What makes the story great? There's actually one thing I don't like about it. It's actually a modern day rendition of another story. Do you know which one? Do you know which one? It's David Copperfield. This is like a modern rendition of David Copperfield, but it takes place in the 90s. But it's okay. She changed it enough that it doesn't really feel like it. In fact, you could only really say that it was inspired by David Copperfield, really. There's a lot going on along the edges here. Boy with a kite, radio, football, spider, snakes. My goodness, what is the story? Shoes, birdhouse, oh, Boo Radley. No, just kidding. Pills. There's pills. That's why we're here today. That's what makes this an amazing book. It talks about medication. I typically only read books that discuss medication. It won a Pulitzer Prize, no surprise. And it was in Oprah's book club. And this is a thick daddy. Was this like 500 pages? I don't even remember. Yeah, about 550. Now, what's interesting about this book, and this is, this is why I won a Pulitzer Prize, by the way. For those of you who don't know, the Pulitzer is not necessarily the best book. It's a book that deals with uniquely American issues, or a uniquely American story. And this author is an Appalachian woman. She lives with her husband on a farm in southern Appalachia, somewhere in Virginia, I believe. And the Appalachian people, their stories normally do not get told. I used to say that I was from Appalachia, although since J.D. Vance oh my gosh, since J.D. Vance and the controversy around his book, I don't even remember what it was called. What was it called? Hillbilly Elegy. And everybody's like, you're not even from here, bro. Ever since that, I don't really say that I'm Appalachian anymore, because where I grew up, it was on the very tail end of Appalachia. When you get down into like Virginia, like Morgantown, Berkeley Springs, those areas, or West Virginia rather, I mean the hills and the mountains, they just sing. The hollers. It's much different than any other part of America. And the struggles that those folks have don't ever get told. And because where I was from, it was kind of like it was kind of like at the very end of Appalachia. And because of all that controversy with this book, I don't know if I would be considered Appalachian or not anymore. But anyway, this tells the story of a little boy who was born to a substance abusing mother. Hence the pills. And it basically tells his struggle, deadbeat father, mother was an addict, she started living with another guy, and he was abusive, this other guy, his stepfather, but I don't remember if they got married or not in the book or whatever, and he was in and out of foster care. The kid doesn't stand a chance. And that's all too common, according to lore, in the Appalachian region. I love Appalachia. I love being there. I love talking to the people. Much slower pace of life. Much more respectful. Much more visceral. But it comes at a cost. In general, back in the day, in the coal mining era, that area particularly was basically ruled by railways and coal mining companies, energy companies, and the families there were about as close to slavery as you could be without actually being enslaved, really. They would do things like they would pay them in company money, which is money that they could only use at stores that the company owned. It wasn't real money, Anyway, that period of time still has its lingering effect on the area. But we don't get to see too much of the folks who really rise above from that area. And their music, their culture, the food, it's not celebrated very much. Everybody just has a big old poverty about it. I'm going to delete that. You don't get to see it very much. So this tells the story of a young boy. Tries to find his real dad. By the way, the name here, obviously it's an allusion to David Copperfield. But I think his biological father was one of those like snake dancing people in the church. That's where you get the copperhead part. take a look at this. Now I can't read very much of this for copyright issues, but look. This is one of the best first paragraphs. First, I got myself born. A decent crowd was on hand to watch, and they've always given me that much. The worst of the job was up to me, my mother being, let's just say, out of it. From the exact moment that he came into this world, he had a struggle. I want to give some examples of her phenomenal writing style. By the way, this is I don't know how old she is exactly. She's like 40 or 50 years old or whatever, and this is written from the perspective of a young boy in the 90s, and she killed it. I mean, like, I wouldn't even know, and I literally grew up in the 90s. If you ask me, her building was scarier than any sharks, like being tracked in a Duke Nukem Doom castle. 1,000 other families living there, every front door opening into one hallway. Stairs going down past other hallways. Outside the main front door, a street full of cars and cars, people and people. There was no outside anywhere. I asked Emmy who all those other people were, and she said she had no idea, but you could talk to them. You could talk to them due to You couldn't talk to them due to stranger danger. I think, if I recall, I don't remember the part where Demon grew up, but like it was the country, like nothing, dude. And he went on like like a hillbilly vacation, I guess, to like, I think they're in Knoxville, or maybe it's Gatlinburg, and he just couldn't believe how many people were there. It's a very fun time, I guess, for a child who never really got out of the country. And this is the part where his mom dies. In the 2 weeks I was gone. Oh wait, no, I guess she didn't die yet. In the 2 weeks I was gone, Mom did these things. Got married to Stoner. Stoner is his stepdad. Took off work for a weekend, honeymoon in Luray Caverns. I don't know where that is. Moved the furniture around. So you can see like how well she masters the innocent, cherubic nature of a young boy. You know, which one of these things don't belong in this list? You know, it's just how kids think. And the author just does an amazing job of doing that. I don't even know how she did it. Imagine trying to be somebody you're not for 550 pages. How does somebody do that? Dinner was hamburger meat with cans of manwich poured on it, plus macaroni and melted cheese. Awesome. I would tell Mom about this. She never could think of a thing to make for dinner. Mr. Crickson asked, fast forward how practice was, and blah, 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 blah. You get the idea. At one point he was in a farm, in a foster home. And the owner of the farm, the foster dad, is that the right word? Foster parent, but it was a guy, and he was alone. He didn't have a wife or nothing. He would bring these boys onto the farm as foster kids, and then work them to sun up to sundown in the tobacco fields. I wonder how prevalent that is. Would you call that like foster care fraud or something like that? That's what was going on. You know, you get your $200 a week or whatever per kid, and then you make them work on the farm. And I think his second family also, kind of a similar thing, but it was less farmy and more money. You know, they just didn't have enough money, so they just took foster kids just to get more money. Maybe life or destiny or Jesus, if you really need to put somebody in charge of things, had finally flung down one too many rocks in Mom's road, and she called it a day. That's option 1. Or 2, maybe she didn't aim to die but miscalculated. To cap off her 29-year pile-up of miscalculations, one of those, of course, being me. I could spend the rest of my life asking which it was. Or accident. No answer on that line. How do you think of something like that? That's where the bell rang. Fight over. The principal had already slipped out with nobody noticing. Shoulder pads packed up in business and left. But some few kids stuck around to disagree with Mr. Armstrong.